Hello, and good afternoon from Seattle. My name is Eric Schmidt, and I head up developer advocacy efforts for data analytics here at Google Cloud. If you're just joining us from the Data Cloud Summit, congratulations, you made it through all the sessions. But we have one more for you, and hopefully it'll be a treat. Today, we're broadcasting live, and we're inviting you to join our weekly stand-up over at Cymbal Gaming. And in case you didn't know, Cymbal Gaming is a fake company, and I will be playing a fake data engineer. But don't get confused or worried. I'm a real data engineer in real life here at Google, and so is the rest of my team. Hi, Brad. Hi, Leigha.
Hey, Eric. Hi, everybody. I'm Leigha. I'm a real data scientist playing a fake one at Cymbal Gaming.
I'm Brad, and I'll focus on open source data analytics. And you out there in the audience, you are our data professionals. Yes, the data pros. You're the pros that we've invited to engage in our stand-up today. You can give us live feedback with emojis or chat, and we will ask you questions directly.
Hey, Eric, it's poll time. Let's go ahead and ask the data pros who's on with us today.
This is awesome. So throughout the session, we'll be posting up these live interactive polls. And the first one is we want to know who's with us. Right below the video window, you should see the poll right now. So let us know who you are. All right, so Cymbal Gaming stand-up, it's about to begin. Leigha, you always kick these off for us, so I'm going to head it back over to you.
Great, thanks. So welcome, team. Our stand-up today is focused on our latest game acquisition, Flood It. This brings us up to 53 games in our portfolio. For all you data pros out there, you can find Flood It in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Hey, Brad, do you mind posting a link in the chat so everyone can play and get really distracted?
You got it.
Great, thanks. So like the other games in our portfolio, it's single player and has a simple but addictive game loop. All right, so today we're going to focus on the migration and integration of Flood It into our data cloud architecture. We have 4 topics on today's agenda. First up is data acquisition. Then we're going to take a look at the current state of our data lake and warehouse integration. Next, we'll take a first pass look at our churn analysis. And then we're going to wrap things up by looking at existing Spark workflows. So Eric, you're up first to talk about data acquisition.
Hey, Eric. So just before you start, it looks like we actually have some data on our data pros. And from looking at it, it looks like we have a nice split between data engineers and data analysts with us today.
You know, I always like whenever there's a well-balanced team, but we always need more data scientists, especially in our group. So there you go. Thanks. So good to know. Keep the information flowing on the chat. All right. So Flood It. Their current overall architecture, as we know, whenever we're doing due diligence, they're running on AWS. My goal for this past week was to look at data acquisition and data integration. And I focused on 3 data sources: Google Analytics, their leaderboard data, and user comments. Now, for Google Analytics, Flood It has been using a third-party service to do daily batch exports of GA data into S3 buckets. And then they've been using EMR, specifically with Apache Spark, to run all their analytics and ETL. Now, in our Google architecture, we stream GA data directly into BigQuery. We do this for the rest of all of our other games, and we're going to do the same thing here. One thing we won't have to worry about is splitting out all the old data into cold storage, because BigQuery storage does that for us. Now, Brad, heads up, I'm also running some daily batch export jobs out of BigQuery so we can start hydrating our existing data lake. I'm going to jump over to the console. And here you can see the data warehouse environment that I've been adding information to. So Leigha, this is what I showed you last week. This is the new data analytics data set with the events table. This events table contains the 5 years roughly of backfill from the GA data that I pulled over from S3 and loaded it in. And then I've also reconnected the BigQuery connector for Google Analytics to hydrate this table in near real time. So you'll be able to do all of your intraday analysis. I did some quick cursory work looking at the schema. It's the standard schema for GA data, but Leigha, keep in mind that they make heavy use of session information to track game information. So whenever you get into the schema, make sure you pay attention to that. So now with this in place, I then turned over to the leaderboard work. And Flooded's current leaderboard architecture design uses RDS managed MySQL, both for transactional management as well as for all the analytical calculation for the leaderboard. And at peak game use, contention between inserts into the table, and there's actually several tables, and the leaderboard calculation causes the leaderboard calculation to slow down and all the global user ranks to be off.
Hey, Eric, real quick. So trying to do transactional and analytical work over the same query and storage engine, it looks like it might not be great design, don't you think?
For sure. And I don't want to knock the previous engineers for this. They had the decisions, they made the right decisions at the right time. And there are better ways to solve this problem. As you know, we use Bigtable for the majority of our existing leaderboard workloads. But in this case, I didn't want to rewrite the entire system. Plus, as we know, MySQL can scale really well if treated correctly. So in our new implementation, what I've done is I've migrated the MySQL instance over to Cloud SQL. And then to separate out all of the analytical processing, I'm using DataStream to stream all of the database inserts and mutations. And first pass, I'm pushing them to GCS. And as PubSub support comes out for DataStream, I'm also going to do real-time analytics through PubSub and Dataflow. Now, the beauty here is that with this architecture, we can augment the leaderboard sophistication without doing any harm to the transactional flow.
Whoa. Okay, that is pretty cool, Eric. And it also looks like this is the first time that we're using DataStream for change data capture. So this is a new service that was just announced today at the Data Cloud Summit. So let's ask our data pros out there and see if they're using CDC today. And it looks like
Cool.
I see some emojis firing away. So let's just do a quick poll.
All right, and we'll get back to that. I love this real-time feedback, so thanks, Data Pros. Now, here I'm in the console right now. And Brad, Leigha, I'm going to show this because this is the first time both of you have been seeing this. This is the DataStream feature inside of the Google Cloud Console. What I did here is I set up a source profile leaderboard. This points to the Cloud SQL instance. Now, keep in mind, we could have also connected this to a MySQL instance running on premise, on AWS, Azure, et cetera. Here, I pulled it over to Cloud SQL. Then from there, I set up a destination type. So for this path right now, I'm moving all of the CDC information off to cloud storage. I've also specified the destination format in this case, which is Avro. And then from here, you can see the leaderboard stream. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. The other thing that I did is I edited the source configuration for the schema that I want to extract out of MySQL. In this case, I'm looking at the existing flooded leaderboard. I've also checked off that I want future tables. I'm going to do some schema augmentation probably next week on this existing flooded table. So as I make changes and create new future tables, they will get pushed out to the stream. I've also gone in and enabled historical backfill. So there's around 2 years worth of historical leaderboard information. That's all now showing up in the buckets. So if I go over to GCS, I can see right here, this is the structure for the output. I basically have leaderboard stream, then I have year, month, day, hour, minute, etc. So Brad, we can play around with this schema structure so that you could maybe build like a Hive implementation on top of this existing Avro data. And then down from here, I'm just tailing this Avro information right now. All right. So it's been a busy week for me. We now have real-time access to all the leaderboard data. We have real-time access to all of the GA data. I didn't make much progress on the user comments. Sorry about that. Leigha said she was going to help me out. Brad, I'm going to pass it over to you to give us an update on where we're at with Lake integration.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. So for Lake integration, we're going to be building on top of Dataplex.
So I was thinking about this. I was reading some of our pre-meeting notes, and it said that you were using Dataplex. Why are you using Dataplex whenever this was announced and previewed today?
Yeah, so I think you're going to love this, Eric. Dataplex allows us to organize our data in such a way that we can isolate flooded data from our other gaming and operational data. This gives us the ability to secure our data and allows granular access across different working groups. So Dataplex also gives us the ability to automatically discover new data in our lake, create metadata for it, and allow us to access it via BigQuery external tables. You definitely have to check this out. Let me actually go ahead and show you here. So I've created this lake here. which is going to be the lake for all of our flooded data. So this is where data, all data related to the game will be stored, and we can assign the necessary security and access groups at the lake level or lower. So if I click here, and then I go to the zones tab, next you can see here that I created separate zones based on the different types of data we'll be storing in the lake. So here I've created two. So one is for the usage and the leaderboard data. The other is for payments. And so this gives us the ability to have more flexibility for finer grain access control. And then if I click into this usage leaderboard zone, next you can see that I deployed the leaderboard data into the zone. So now it will be automatically discovered, metadata will be generated from it, and it'll be accessible via BigQuery. Although, as I'm looking at this, I do see that there's an error. I'm actually not super sure what happened here.
Oh, sorry, that was me. I was working on those user comments that Eric mentioned before, and I dropped some in the storage bucket. I think they might have mismatching schemas. So I'll take a look and clean it up tomorrow.
Gotcha. Thanks, Leigha. So as I'm thinking more about data governance, it would probably be a good idea to have this data in its own zone, maybe one related to CRM data, since it contains a PII data. So here's an example of discovery in BigQuery. So this data set here is a reference to the external tables that have shown up in Dataplex. And I've actually gone ahead and ran this query, which is just going to be doing a count and a group by over the data here. And then we can see that the results, of course, popped up as well. So it looks like this is working pretty well.
Oh, this is super cool. So just so I'm understanding things correctly, I can write a SQL query that grabs the data from the external table, transforms it, and then just hydrates a native table in BigQuery?
Yep, that's correct.
Wow. Cool.
So with this workflow, we can mix and match how and where we want to perform our transformations.
Great.
Even possibly use Spark and Spark SQL.
Cool.
So to recap, with Dataplex, we have the org structure, the fine-grained security controls, and discovery all in place. Also, hey, data pros, please chime in the chat and let me know if you're using any sort of data lake solution today.
Thanks, Brad. This is super helpful. I really like the fact that we can physically map our organizational structure to how we logically think about the use of data, especially as we keep coming up with new ideas over this data. But what I'm even more excited about is the metadata discovery aspects. We have 10 more game acquisitions coming this quarter, and this is really going to help with speeding up integration. So thanks, man. Leigha, where are you at on warehousing and analysis?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So I was super eager to start digging into the flooded data, keeping in mind that we needed to provide data governance, exploration abilities, and actionable insights. I know we have a lot of people who have been waiting to get access to the flooded data. So I started to build up our data warehouse and business intelligence integrations using both BigQuery and Looker. Now, before I talk to you about how I approached my goals, I would really love to hear from all the data pros out there. So it's poll time. Who here actually uses BigQuery as their data warehouse? Go ahead and vote on the poll below. And I think I see some results starting to come in.
Hey, Leigha, I use BigQuery every day, just so you know.
Yay, me too. I mean, I love BigQuery. Great, so let me hop in the console and show you what I've been working on. So in the BigQuery console, like I said, I started to build up that data governance layer, creating a source of truth for our organization. So Eric, thanks again for bringing in that Google Analytics data. I also worked on creating this function library where we'll have stored procedures and UDFs for our entire organization to use. Now, in here, I went ahead and started to create some meaningful views to help people consume all this data in an easier fashion. I have some materialized views. I even incorporated some of the public data sets using weather data to see the relationship between distinct flooded users and the weather. And then I went ahead and created this authorized view. And basically what this does is it allows analysts to query this view, which gives them access to that underlying events table, but it ensures that they don't have access to any of the PII columns in this user property field. And hey, Brad, do you think we can actually use Dataplex to make sure people don't get access to the underlying events table?
You sure can. And we can actually lock this down with specific security groups to ensure that only the correct folks have access at either the lake level or the zone level.
Awesome. Great. Well, besides working on BigQuery, like I said, I got started integrating Looker with BigQuery. And to do this, I got started by creating this BI project. And I created a service account that will actually run all my queries sent from Looker through this BI staging project.
So, Leigha, quick question. So, it sounds like you, if I'm getting this correctly, you are going to set up and continue to extend this existing warehousing project, mainly for BigQuery storage, maintaining UDFs, views, etc. And then you're going to use this separate BI project for querying and interactive analysis. This sounds like a lot what's happening in the rest of Cymbal Gaming, where we're building these little data marts everywhere. Is that we're doing the same thing here?
Exactly. So because BigQuery separates storage and compute, I can have one project, my warehouse staging project, that's storing all the data for my organization. And then I can have this separate project that basically just acts as a compute warehouse for my, Looker or my business intelligence tool. And basically structuring it like this allows us to easily maintain governance over billing, access management, and monitor who's querying what. I'm also going to go ahead and keep an eye on this BI staging project to see if it makes sense to assign a BI engine reservation that'll handle these workloads and make the queries a lot faster.
Thanks.
Awesome. So time to talk about data exploration. Like I said, I started by connecting Looker to our BigQuery environment. And the first thing I do when I'm working with Looker is get started with a LookML model. And this model basically acts as my data dictionary, storing the definitions of all of my metrics for my organization to use. Now here I'm showing, an application that's available in Looker to visualize that LookML model. When I connected Looker to BigQuery, Looker actually kind of talked to BigQuery to guess the relationships between different tables and auto-generate that model for me. So in the center, I have my base events table. And then I've already parsed out all of my different array fields like event parameters and user properties into their own tables that can then be joined back on at query time. I also went ahead and started to build up some new custom fields. So first I started with this bounced user field. And I defined a bounced user as anyone who had their last interaction within 10 minutes of their first interaction. So in less than 10 minutes, they were done playing Flood It. Then I created this churned user field. And this basically says if a user stopped playing within 24 hours. And as I was going through these fields and kind of analyzing this data, I realized that putting bounce users aside, almost 30% of our users actually churn, which seems pretty high.
Oh, wow. I feel like our goal is around 15%. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. So I really wanted to focus on, how I could try to build a model to actually predict who is likely to churn. So maybe we can take action and prevent them from leaving our game. So that's where I started to use Looker's Explore environment to really explore and slice and dice this data. Here, I'm showing how I used one of those UDFs to parse out fields from an EAV schema, nested in that Google Analytics data. And I pulled out, the total engagement time that a user spent within their first 24 hours of play. And we can see the more time they're spending playing, the less likely they are to churn. So next, I wanted to use this field along with a couple of other ones to try to predict what users were going to churn from our game. For this, I decided to build out a BQML or BigQuery machine learning model. So I built a logistic regression model that uses fields from the Google Analytics data to predict who is going to churn. Now I created this nice little dashboard for our marketing team where they can see model heuristics like the accuracy, precision, recall, but probably more importantly, they can get a list of all of the users that we think are likely to churn. Now what the marketing team can do is actually jump into Looker's Explore environment, and they can use Looker Actions to send this list of users to other applications, like maybe Twilio, so we can text them promotional offerings, or even Google Analytics or Google Ads to do targeted advertising towards those users. So, busy week for me as well. So just to kind of wrap up everything I talked about, I built out our data warehouse using BigQuery that will provide our source of truth and data governance. And then we use Looker as our robust data platform for visualizing and exploring our data. Then I use BQML to develop an applied machine learning model that will let teams identify and take action on the insights that they discover.
Thanks, Leigha. I hate to say this, but the marketing department is going to love you. So don't show them that dashboard just yet. So thanks. So Brad, last part of stand-up, you've been working on integrating Flooded's existing Spark SQL workflow. And I remember whenever we were doing the due diligence on the engineering side, we saw a lot of their ETL and analytics were all done in Spark SQL. What did you end up discovering?
Yeah. So Flutter was sitting on a lot of Spark SQL workflow, and instead of just dumping it, I actually worked on migrating their existing implementation over to Dataproc, specifically Dataproc Hub for a hosted Jupyter Lab environment. So I'm actually just curious. Let's go to our data pros briefly. So first off, who uses Apache Spark for anything from using it for data processing pipelines to building machine learning models? And then definitely let us know in the chat if we've happened to miss your use case. So let me actually show you what we're working on over here. So here we have our Dataproc Hub environment. And if I click here where it says Open Jupyter Lab, I can actually open up the Jupyter Lab instance and then navigate to a notebook that I have prepared here. So let's just open this up. So since we already have our large Spark code base that we're using for exploratory data analysis, data engineering, and machine learning, we want to integrate all of those with BigQuery. So as an example, what I've done here is I've taken the workflow that Leigha's prepared on the GA4 data and mapped it to a series of PySpark SQL jobs using the Spark BigQuery connector. This will provide a Spark data frame access to BigQuery.
Well, so hey, Brad, can you scroll down just a little bit? I want to just get a quick look at the rest of some of these cells. So, we're doing schema, and you're doing some schema mapping, you're doing some calculation of churned users. So again, like I was really pumped whenever I saw Leigha's looker-based workflow and building up the semantic model around the game. But I know there's a lot of existing value in this code. So maybe after this stand-up, you and Leigha can sit down and do a deep dive on where you want to migrate some of this code or where you want to basically just integrate it as is.
Absolutely, and I've been thinking about that a bit, and I think some of the things we can do include using a tool such as Spark NLP for natural language processing on the comments data that we have, or using something like GraphX for creating graph algorithms. And I also know folks on the team have expressed interest in combining this with other open source tools such as Rapids and TensorFlow. And so what we can do is we can actually configure the notebook environment to be able to utilize any one of these. And then in the use case here that I showcase, one of the values is that we have the ability to write this back into BigQuery once we're done processing our data, as well as write it to the data lake.
Wow, thanks. I was just thinking it's like this whole idea of like no engineer is an island, and in this case, no data is an island. So thanks for doing that. Amazing work to both of you. I know it was a tough week. We covered a lot of ground today. I covered data acquisition and integration. Brad, you gave us a readout on where we're at with data lake integration and leading into our warehouse implementation. Leigha, you took us through your approach to the churn analysis and integrating Looker with BigQuery. And then we just wrapped up with our discussion about Spark and Spark SQL support. I also want to send a big thank you to our data pros out there. We loved having you engage with us in real time, and we will make sure to send you an invite to the next Cymbal Gaming. We're not going anywhere. So we'll see you then. We have some time to take some live questions, and we'll go ahead and look at those right now. I'm seeing, let's see. So what is BI Engine? Leigha, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, sure. So I did mention BI Engine reservations before. This stands for Business Intelligence Engine. And it's BigQuery's in-memory execution engine that caches data to really speed up those queries. So if you're using BigQuery with a business intelligence tool, I definitely recommend checking it out.
Well, and there's another one that came in. This is probably for you too. It says the weather public data that you talked about. Can we request other data sets to be added?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the BigQuery public data sets is awesome. So many amazing data sets there. You can reach out to us to, ask questions about adding specific data sets. But even more exciting, we actually just open sourced our pipeline that we use to ingest data into the BigQuery public data sets. So look out for some blog posts and more information on that.
Cool. And then I think we have time for one more. It says, what's the difference between Dataplex and data catalog? Brad, why don't you grab that one?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So they actually work together. So Dataplex helps you manage your data lake specifically. It helps you get data into it. It allows you to do that automatic metadata discovery and as well as the data governance. But then what data catalog will do for you is actually keep track of all that. So as Dataplex is discovering all of this, that actually gets written into your data catalog instance. So the two, work in conjunction with each other really well.
Cool. It's a symbiotic relationship. All right. So that's a wrap on today's Data Cloud Summit. And in case you missed it, we have 22 data sessions available for you on demand. So make sure you check them out. Brad, back to you.
Thanks, Eric. We had a lot of fun kicking off our Cloud Summit series with data. Tomorrow, of course, continues with our Financial Services Summit. And then let's look forward to our Applied ML Summit in June, especially with all the announcements we just made at Google I/O for Vertex. And you can find all things Summit at the link included here.
Gotta love this series. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope you all enjoyed hearing the customer stories, use cases, and new product announcements. Let's definitely stay connected on social, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.